for being here today. This is the committee's 5th hearing on the design, development, certification of the Boeing 737 MAX in response to 2 catastrophic crashes that claimed 346 lives in the span of 5 months. Once again, I would like to recognize the family members of those killed, some of whom are here today, and our thoughts are with you as always. And we're here to ensure that the lives of your family members were not lost in vain and without response. You can be sure this committee will continue to be aggressive in our oversight efforts to determine what went so horribly wrong, why, and we won't rest until we've enacted legislation to prevent future unairworthy airplanes from slipping through regulatory cracks and into airline service. In November 2018, a few days after a powerful system running in the background of a 737 MAX called MCAS pushed Lion Air Flight 610 into an unrecoverable dive, the FAA issued an emergency airworthiness directive that purported to inform pilots on how to respond to an erroneous activation of MCAS. Well, it actually never mentioned the system by name. In fact, during the certification of the 737 MAX, Boeing actively pushed the FAA to remove references to MCAS from the flight crew operating manual, as revealed in the emails and instant messages from Boeing executive Mark Faulkner, which Boeing initially failed to provide to the committee. The FAA accepted Boeing's push. Faulkner went on to boast that he was, quote, Jedi mind tricking, end quote, other civil aviation regulators around the world to adopt the FAA's faulty decision. But perhaps most chillingly, we've learned that shortly after the issuance of the airworthiness directive, the FAA performed an analysis that concluded that if left uncorrected, the MCAS design flaw in the 737 MAX could result in as many as 15 future fatal crashes over the life of the fleet, with the assumption, which is questionable, that 99 out of 100 flight crews could comply with the airworthiness directive, successfully react to the cacophony of alarms and alerts recounted in the NTSB's report on the Lion Air tragedy within 10 seconds. Such an assumption, we know now, was tragically wrong, and it certainly did not meet FAA's criteria of 10 to the minus 9. Despite its own calculations, the FAA rolled the dice on the safety of the traveling public and let the MAX continue to fly until Boeing could overhaul its MCAS software. Tragically, the FAA's analysis, which never saw the light of day beyond the closed doors of the FAA and Boeing, was correct. And the next crash, taking more lives, 5 months later, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, March 2019. A committee's investigation into the 2 crashes was launched just days after the second accident in March. We have received more than 500,000 pages of documents from Boeing, the FAA, and other parties that staff continues to analyze, and that doesn't even include numerous emails from the FAA that we have requested. We just received another large batch on Monday night in response to our April request, and others have yet to be provided. We've interviewed and spoken with FAA employees, Boeing whistleblowers, among others. These documents, emails, interviews are crucial to our investigation, which has uncovered a broken safety culture within Boeing and an FAA that was unknowing, unable, or unwilling to step up, regulate, and provide appropriate oversight of Boeing. The FAA failed to ask the right questions, failed to adequately question the answers that agency staff received from Boeing. Our investigation has revealed that many of FAA's own technical experts and safety inspectors believe FAA's management often sides with Boeing rather than standing up for the safety of the public. Mr. Dixon, I've read your testimony. I appreciate the tenor and the substance of your remarks. I commend your commitment to cultivating a just culture among FAA employees and ensuring that they have the analysis and tools necessary to make the right decisions in the name of safety. But our investigation to date has established that FAA employees did not have the analysis and tools necessary to make the right decisions in the case of the 737 MAX. These safety specialists need your support. There is no imaginable situation in which they should be jammed or subjected to end runs by Boeing to their managers. I expect you and your subordinates to back them up, defend their reasonable decisions based on technical evidence, and mandated compliance with FAA regulations and safety. Boeing made egregious errors, including the furtive implementation of MCAS while knowing it could present a catastrophic risk, and the FAA also failed to do its job. It didn't provide the regulatory oversight necessary to ensure the safety of the flying public. The FAA trusted, but did not appropriately verify key information assumptions Boeing presented to the agency about the MAX, and this was at a time when Boeing's own employees, as we learned at our last hearing, reported they perceived undue pressure from management. We're trying to figure out what went wrong here, fix it legislatively, and not ever allow something like this to happen again. In that spirit, on this panel, we'll hear from Administrator Steve Dixon and a member of the review panel that's assessing remedial changes to the MAX design. Mr. Dixon, as I said, I appreciate what I read in your testimony about your approach to improving safety, but I will still have some tough questions for you, and I hope to hear from you about what the FAA has identified as faults and failures in the certification of the MAX, the FAA process generally, what concrete steps you've taken to date to correct them. I also appreciate your commitment to the 737 MAX will not take flight again until you and your employees responsible for overseeing Boeing and certifying its MCAS overhaul are 100% confident in its safety. On our second panel, we'll hear from two former FAA and Boeing employees, as well as two well-respected experts in the fields of aviation and human and safety factors for their perspectives on the faulty design. And we will hear from a Boeing whistleblower, FAA whistleblower, and a former employee of Boeing. So therefore, I want to be certain, Mr. Dixon, that I worked for a number of years, and it was only after people died in the ValueJet crash that I stripped FAA of its promotional responsibility, which was an artifact from the dawn of the commercial aviation era. And I want to be certain that that hasn't crept back in. If the industry needs promotion, Commerce can do it, or they can do it themselves. You and your people are there for one reason only, to assure the safety of the flying public, and I look forward to your testimony today. With that, I would yield to the ranking member.